Survival Guide: Prepping to Stay Cool, Stay Warm, and Find Water by Jordan Gunner. Narrated by J.A. Leidig. Chapter 1: An Intro to Survival. When something goes extremely wrong, and you are a long way from getting some help, you must have the ability to make it through on your own for at least as long as it takes for somebody to save you. Making a rescue possible requires some actions before you leave home, like telling other people where you are going, your planned route, and when you expect to come back. But that's not what this book is about. Physical condition first. In case you just fell over and are now laying flat on your back, do a thoughtful examination before you start moving again. Can you wiggle your toes or your fingers? Where does it hurt the most? Is there any blood? If so, from where? Is there anything that's broken or sprained? Are you cold or warm? Maybe you are thirsty. Not only does this kind of exercise assist you to evaluate the degree of the predicament you are in regarding your physical condition, but it also makes you slow down for a minute and focus on solving your issue. If you do recognize a physical problem, use whatever initially help you can. Next, evaluate your surroundings. If you just made it through an avalanche or some other fast-moving thing that happened, you would rapidly examine the steadiness of your circumstance. In many cases, you may need to scramble out of damage's way, even before you examine your physical condition. After you get to a stable position, give some thought to where you are and what that suggests to your chances of survival. If you are in the desert and it gets cold in the evening, know that simple fact and that it indicates you will need some way to keep yourself warm. If your disaster took place in deep snow, you have one other set of conditions to evaluate in addition to keeping warm. Is anyone else around? Maybe you can call for help. Are there birds or other animals around? Where is the nearby water? If you were knowing as you moved along the trail, you should have already thought of the replies to lots of these kinds of questions. Finally, size up the devices you have with you. If you are backpacking, you probably have most of the tangible things you need to survive for at the very least some time. Think about what you have and how it can be used to resolve any of the concerns you already identified. You will want to fix the most critical needs first, like emergency treatment, but bear in mind your long-term needs like food, water, and shelter. You do not want to use your camping tent poles for a splint if you expect to really need your camping tent for shelter. Instead, search for pieces of wood or something else that may work as a splint. At this time, you can begin thinking more about the future and come up with a survival strategy. Use all your senses. Unnecessary rush makes waste. The concept behind creating a survival plan is to again slow yourself down so that you don't act in a rush and make your situation worse. Listen to the noises around you. Smell the smells. You should look at your environment. Look at the sky. Collect whatever info you can that may help you make the best choices as you prepare to take action. If you have been hiking through the woods for a while, you could not know your specific position. Go out to your map and GPS system if you have one and identify your location. Then write the GPS coordinates on the map. If your battery passes away, those coordinates could be a matter of life or death if you can communicate them to searchers. If you don't have GPS ability, use your compass to orient your map to your environments and find yourself that way. With this piece of information, you will have the ability to evaluate escape paths, find water, and normally end up being more knowledgeable about the environment in which you need to survive. Vanquish fear and panic. If you have peacefully and systematically gone through the above steps, you most likely are no longer in panic mode. A particular amount of fear might be present, But if you have prepared yourself with fundamental survival skills beforehand, and if you came geared up for your adventure, you should be okay. Be positive that you can deal with the circumstance as needed. Improvise. Use your imagination and invent new things if you must. If you are stuck in survival mode, you will be confronted with a continuous series of issues to resolve. Do you need a hammer? Utilize a rock. Need a plaster? What's in your pack? Will a leaf work? People have the capacity to develop and utilize tools for about anything that needs doing. Your role is to specify the issue, then find a solution using the material that's readily available to you. Value living. Your mental state is critical to your survival. In some cases, it's simple to forfeit. In a survival situation, that turns into death. Okay, it might be stressful, bothersome, uncomfortable, and even agonizing, but you really need to accept that. Be stubborn and overcome the steps required for your survival. Your will to live can make all the distinction. Imitate the natives. In a fight circumstance, it's important to be knowledgeable about the people in your area and what they're doing. In a wilderness survival situation, though, there will not be people around. Rather, you can assess any animal life around you. Are there deer trails or animal tracks that might lead you to water, shelter, and even food? Bear in mind that some animals can eat some things that are dangerous to people. Simply because an animal ate it does not necessarily mean that you should. It's better to have some knowledge about edible plants and fungi before you set out on your adventure. Keep your wits around you. Your wits are, of course, informed by your knowledge. Therefore, you must do some learning ahead of time. For one, study the 4 books we have offered. It's important that you keep studying these things. Second, if you practice what they preach, you'll become better at it, not just with knowledge, but also with experience. Chapter 2: Survival Water Filters, DIY Techniques. Is it okay to drink the water? I ask myself that question typically, and most of the time, the answer is no. There usually is the risk that germs, chemicals, and pathogens, particularly Giardia, are in the water. Rainwater or dew that's resting on non-poisonous plants like moss is safe to drink as is. There are a few methods to process drinking water to make it safer to drink. There is boiling it, using chemical cleansers, and purification. This book will supply ideas on how to make and use a survival water filter. What does a survival water filter do? Having water pass through a filter will make the water safe to drink. High-quality water filters from a shop will guarantee that no damaging pathogens or bacteria are entering into your drinking water. However, sometimes using store-bought, high-quality water filters might not be a choice. Few people carry one of these around with them all of the time. Besides, the problem with store-bought water filters is they really need to be cleaned up, or the filter needs to be changed relatively typically, and you should remember to carry it when you're out checking out. Filtering water with what you have. The standard process of filtering water in a survival circumstance is to get rid of debris like ground, dirt, sediment, sticks, leaves, and any animals living in the water. In order to develop a survival water filter, you will really need to collect various materials, such as pebbles, sand, fabric, and charcoal. If you realize you are in a survival situation, take a bit of time to think about what needs to be done. Sort out what you have with you and how it can be used to your benefit. Many people who are lost are found within 24 hours, so don't go crazy. Bear in mind that it isn't possible to filter salt water into drinkable fresh water, despite of the kinds of water filters you have. Making a standard survival water filter from scratch. The first thing to consider when gathering water is to think of how soon you'll need to drink. If you have time, collect standing water in a container and let it sit for some hours. This will allow anything that drifts to rise to the surface area and you can skim off any rubble. If you have 2 containers, then you should try this method for filtering water. Take the first container and fill it with water. Then put your t-shirt or some sort of permeable layer over the other container. Then put your pebbles on top of the cloth and filter your water by pouring it over the stones and into the container. After that, eliminate the pebbles and put sand, a finer material, on top of the fabric. Filter your water one more time. Finally, the most effective way to filter is to squash up charcoal. Put it on your fabric and let the water run through it. Charcoal filters remove sediment, many impurities, and improve taste. Charcoal is used in store-bought home and backcountry water filters. You could make your very own charcoal by making a campfire, covering it with dirt and ash, and allow it to cool totally. Once it has cooled, crush it into little pieces, then pour the water through the charcoal a few times. It's possible you should build a gizmo that will combine all 3 filtering steps, letting the water flow from one material to another. This will make the water slowly clearer as you filter it several times. If you don't have a man-made container, some natural materials are great alternatives. Bamboo is a prime example. It is hollow in the center and water can flow through it quickly. There are a lot of other plants with hollow centers. Make sure to use these to your advantage. A hollow log can be a great alternative. Place the materials, pebbles, sand, fabric, and charcoal, in layers through the different parts of the bamboo or log. Remember to think of what materials you are carrying and have a look at your environments in any survival circumstance. This should offer you with a fundamental insight on how to develop a survival water filter. Understand that it is still possible to get ill, even if you follow the standards in this post. Always get in touch with a physician after you drink questionable water. The side effects of pathogens and microbes will take at the very least a week to start impacting you. When you're in a survival circumstance, keep hydrated and worry about those side effects sometime later. Chapter 3. More about clean water. Recently, the question was asked, what piece of prepping gear is at the top of your pail list? What should be obvious is that I was more than a little bit surprised to find that the best response was water storage, water filters, and water filtration equipment. Even though having the gear is nice, anyone fascinated by readiness also needs to have a basic comprehension of the principles behind water and water storage, and where to find, store, purify, and filter water are all questions that really need to be asked, answered, and regularly evaluated. So, how do I know that? A couple months ago, I was personally without running water for 12 days. Depending on speed on the do's and do nots of water were key to my getting by just fine throughout this period. With that in mind, today I share a chapter on the water as a survival fundamental. Back to the fundamentals. Surviving with water. When I initially began backdoor survival, my focus was on gathering the basics: food, water, shelter, and fire. Naturally, along the way, I have discovered that there is so much more that's essential to long-lasting survival. Things that come to mind are clean air, clothing, first aid, self-defense, signaling, and a community with others. However, today I want to keep things basic, and for the benefit of my more recent readers, return to the fundamentals and examine the essentials of water for survival. Water is the most crucial survival basic. Clean water is something that we all take for granted. We turn on the faucet, and there it is. It is plentiful, it is clean, and it is drinkable. Yes, it might have some unwanted chemical additions, such as fluorides, but for the most part, having pure, potable water is something we have come to depend on. What it comes down to is that if a disaster happened and the supply lines to pure water were compromised, we would be in big trouble. There is a possibility that safe water wouldn't be available for days and possibly not for weeks. The guideline propagated by FEMA and practically every other authority out there is that you store at the very least 1 gallon of water per person and family pet each day for a minimum of 3 days. But if you believe that a 3-day water system is sufficient, reconsider. A more sensible recommendation is that you up the suggested amount of saved water to a 2-week supply. So for 2 people, that would be 2 people times 1 gallon times 14 days. That equals 28 gallons. That amount ought to cover your minimal needs for drinking, cooking, and nominal, and I mean nominal, health. Do-it-yourself water storage. Keeping water for an emergency can be as easy as filling thoroughly washed plastic or glass containers with tap water and sealing them securely. That is a thing which anybody can do without incurring a cost so long as a few basic guidelines are followed. Here are steps required to store water for emergency use. 1. Completely clean your plastic bottle and containers with dishwashing soap and water. Then rinse entirely so there is no residual soap. 2. Sanitize your bottles by including a solution of 1 teaspoon of unscented liquid household chlorine bleach to a quart of water. Swish the sanitizing solution in the containers so that it touches all interior surface areas. Don't forget to sanitize the covers and caps as well. After sanitizing the containers and caps, completely wash out the bleach resolution with clean water. Keep in mind, bleach has an efficient shelf life of 1 year. Make certain that the bleach you are using is fresh. 3. Fill the sterilized containers to the leading with regular tap water. Add 2 drops of non-scented liquid household chlorine bleach to the water, then tightly close the containers using the original caps. It is probably a very good idea to use some latex or nitrile gloves. A water freak. How to store water for emergency situation short-term use at this moment so that you can maintain the sanitation and do not contaminate the caps by touching the insides of them with your fingers. 4. Date the outside with a long-term marker, like a Sharpie. 5. Store it in a cool, dark spot. 6. As a precaution, rotate it 6 months to a year. Discard the water, re-sanitize the jugs, and begin all over. Or what you could do too, if you happen to have the room available, you could mark the jugs as non-potable and save the water for non-drinking emergency purposes. Personally, I think it would be a really good idea to set up several containers at the first of each month. Do this for 6 months, and you're going to build up a good rotating stock. Plastic soda bottles or juice containers work well for do-it-yourself water storage. On the other hand, milk jugs should not be used for water storage. Milk and protein sugars are difficult to eliminate and will compromise the kept water just because they produce an environment for germ growth. Additionally, milk containers are lightweight and will not hold up, even for a brief period of time. The same with the cardboard. The cardboard will eventually leak and make a huge mess. Glass is fine, but understand that glass is heavy and is subject to damage. Water stored as described above will benefit at least 6 months to a year and potentially longer. Let me be clear, you turn water not because it has an expiration date, but that it might become chemically or biologically polluted and foul. Why take a chance with it? Theoretically, if the water is kept in a cool, dark area, and from chemical and harmful fumes, it needs to last forever and ever. If the tidiness of the water is in question, it can be cleansed with purification tablets, fresh bleach, or a filtering system such as the Berkey or Life Straw, among others. If you have space and the budget, you can also purchase food-grade plastic containers and drums developed for water storage. Those containers generally hold up to 55 gallons of water, and with the addition of correct filtration chemicals, will keep the water safe for up to 5 years. I personally have a 55-gallon water storage system. It was simple to set up, and it came equipped as a total package with all of the various tools and siphons I am going to need if and when that emergency situation occurs. Another alternative, obviously, is bottled water. The same rule applies. Store in a cool, dark area and regularly rotate just to be on the safe side. Secret sources of water. Aside from faucet water, there are other hidden sources of water that you can use when a catastrophe takes place. Those sources include the water in your warm water heater, pipes, and even ice cubes from the ice maker in your refrigerator or freezer. Before taking advantage of these sources, however, you will initially really need to shut down the primary valve entering your home so that you do not contaminate the good water with the bad. Here are some specific instructions for using the water in your hot water tank. Shut off the electricity or gas. Open the drain at the bottom of the tank. Start the water flowing by shutting off the water compensation valve at the tank and turning on a hot water faucet. And do not forget, be sure to refill the tank before turning the gas or electrical energy back on. Outside sources of water. Barring the usage of kept water or the hidden water sources in your home, there is always the outdoors. Water may be available from rainwater, streams, ponds, lakes, and natural streams. Definitely keep away from the floodwater, as it is very likely to include sewage and other nasty stuff that you do not even want to think about. When you are using outside sources of water, you're going to need to undertake filtration measures to make it safe. There are a lot of ways to purify water, and some are better than others, while some are just simpler than others. Water filtration. For ad hoc water purification, nothing beats plain old bleach, as long as it is fresh, no greater than a year old, and unscented. According to the Clorox website, when boiling off water for 1 minute is not possible in an emergency situation, you can disinfect your drinking water with Clorox water as follows. 1. Eliminate suspended particles by filtering or letting particles settle to the bottom. 2. Put off clear water into a very clean container. 3. Add 8 drops of Clorox regular bleach, not scented or Clorox Plus bleaches, to 1 gallon of water, 2 drops to 1 quart. For cloudy water, use 16 drops per gallon of water, 4 drops to 1 quart. Boiling water is considered the most safe approach of purifying water. What you do is bring water to a rolling boil for 3 to 5 minutes. The water might not taste that great, but it will be safe to drink. Factoid: to enhance the taste of boiled or kept water, you can put some oxygen back into the water by pouring it backward and forward between 2 containers. As an option to bleach or boiling water, the EPA has standards for using calcium hypochlorite, frequently sold as pool shock, to decontaminate water. Add and liquefy 1 loading teaspoon of high-test granular calcium hypochlorite, around a 1/4 ounce, for each 2 gallons of water, or 5 milliliters, roughly 7 grams, per 7.5 liters of water. The mixture will produce a stock chlorine resolution of roughly 500 milligrams per liter. since the calcium hypochlorite has available chlorine that's basically equal to about 70% of its weight. To sanitize water, add the chlorine solution in the ratio of 1 part of chlorine solution to each 100 parts of water to be dealt with. This is about equal to adding 1 pint or 16 ounces of stock chlorine to each 12.5 gallons of water, or approximately half a liter to 50 liters of water to be decontaminated. To eliminate any unpleasant chlorine smell, aerate the disinfected water by putting it backward and forward from one clean container to another. Chapter 4. More about water filters. The use of water filters to make raw water drinkable is another resolution to the water for survival dilemma. The nice thing about a filtration system is that it will not only supplement your stored water, but it will provide you with great tasting, chemical-free drinking water for day to day. I personally have a Royal Berkey, and actually I really wonder what took me so long to discover this option to purchase water in bottles and a countertop Brita. This is not to say that I don't have mineral water simply because I do. After all, I have to leave my home. It would be tough to drag along a 55-gallon water barrel or a Berkey. However, for day-to-day drinking and long-term survival needs, you simply can't beat a quality filtering system. Portable water filters. I've had best of luck with the Life Straw personal water filter. This lightweight and budget-friendly filter is like an extra large straw. You can use it with a cup or dip it straight into a pond or stream. There are other portable water filtering systems as well, and these are handy to keep in your emergency situation backpack, your automobile, or your travel set. If you choose to check into this, be sure to validate that the original contents were foodstuff. You should clean them well first with vinegar and baking soda to remove odors, and then with a strong bleach for sanitation. Here in my area, there's a guy who sells such barrels and will even add a hose bib at the bottom for a small cost. I am not 100% sure I would drink from such a barrel, but the water inside should be great for bathing, laundry, and housekeeping tasks. Another reader has suggested the application of colloidal silver to get rid of bacteria in the water. I have not investigated this personally, though. Whatever your water storage approach of choice, I highly recommend that you store it at the very least 2 weeks of water for each member of your household, which includes pets. Please remember that depending on climate conditions, you can only endure for an average of 3 to 5 days without the consumption of water. Why gamble when it is so easy to store water? Should you store commercial mineral water? There are benefits and drawbacks to using bottled water for your survival water. The apparent advantage of buying bulk containers of water that are normally packaged to be nicely stacked is hard to overlook. Plus, you are buying a relatively pure item that has been bottled under sanitary conditions. All important aspects to consider when assembling your survival water supply. However, there are issues with mineral water that could leave you choosing against saving it, or to just save a minimal amount to see you over a bulge. Mineral water isn't environmentally friendly. The bottles are a huge use of plastic and will pile up fast if you rely on a bottled water supply at the time of an emergency. Not only can disposal cause a problem, if you happen to be a prepper concerned about the environment, then you know water bottles are dreadful, no matter how you slice it. Bottled water is not always ethically sourced. Some international corporations seem content to drain aquifers or pump countless gallons of water from rural areas and deliver it in costly bottles to please the stylish thirst of folks in the big cities. The end outcome is huge profit for some and lost resources for others. Business mineral water isn't made for long-term use. When saved in severe conditions, plastic can break down and leach chemicals. Unsurprisingly, severe conditions are usually when preppers really need their water the most. Do you truly want plastic-flavored water? I do not. As plastic degrades, bottles can start leaking. The exemption to this is the large bottles produced for office water dispensers. These are made to be refilled and don't break down like single-serve water bottles, and the gallons of water you can find at any supermarket during good times. It is expensive. Gallon for gallon, bottled water is a drain on your wallet. Now, it's just one thing to put a dozen or so gallons aside. It's another to make your whole water storage strategy revolve around pricey bottled water. Consider the monetary cost of more than a couple days' worth of drinking water in business bottles. Obviously, there are apparent advantages, like not needing to think about doing any of the bottling yourself, being able to toss a couple bottles in an emergency situation package, or a couple of cases in your car, or stacking boxes of gallon containers in your closet. The creative prepper will stabilize the ecological, social, and monetary costs of business mineral water against its utility. You are the only person who knows exactly what level of energy bottled water offers you, and how to balance that in your preparations. Some folks could rely more heavily on mineral water than others, but that needs to be your choice. At least a well-balanced supply in business bottles, 55-gallon drums, and home-filled containers will give you more options than just counting on a single source of kept water. Bottled water has a purpose, but it probably shouldn't be your primary source of water. It can be costly and harmful to the environment, maybe in a quickly degradable product packaging, and is generally the least efficient storage method of keeping that water. Even so, it offers great convenience, is easily portable, and the containers can be recycled several times over. By stabilizing the good and the bad of mineral water, you can be more safe and secure in your preparations. Chapter 5. Staying Cool Without Airco. Year after year, summer season storms trigger power failures throughout the United States. For the ones who are unprepared, these power blackouts, combined with the summer heat waves, can be a deadly combination. That is why understanding how to cool yourself and your home without AC is a crucial piece of knowledge you should possess. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, approximately 675 people die from heat-related health problems each year in the USA, making it one of the leading causes of weather-related deaths in the country. Throughout an extreme heat wave that hit Chicago in 1995, over 700 deaths were directly credited to the heat. In 2006, in California, a lethal heat wave snuffed out 655 people during a 14-day time period. What makes heat so deadly? Living in the desert, I can tell you that going without air conditioning can be rather a miserable experience. But during an extended power failure, heat can be more than just awkward. It can be downright harmful. Continued direct exposure to excessive heat can result in hyperthermia and heat exhaustion. If left unattended, heat exhaustion can rapidly progress to heat stroke and death. So early treatment and preemptive cooling procedures are very crucial. Throughout a grid-down catastrophe or power blackout, the ability to cool down is going to be vital to your survival, especially if you live in a region that's susceptible to extremely warm weather. How to stay cool when the power heads out and you have no air conditioning. Up to about 60 years ago, in-home air conditioning was practically unusual. But despite an absence of central air conditioning, there wasn't an epidemic of people dropping dead in their homes simply because of the heat. So what changed? Well, just like most of the modern technologies, there was a drawback. People forgot how to look after themselves when technology inevitably failed. The lessons from the past were mostly forgotten, and here we see ourselves in a society that is progressively depending on technology, government, and everybody but ourselves to solve our issues. So, how did prior generations keep themselves cool? They stayed in caves. Even in some of the most popular parts in the world, old populations thrived in areas that most would consider unwelcoming to life. In a lot of these areas, they did this by constructing their homes inside caverns or partially into the ground. While I am not going to suggest you run out and find the nearest cavern, our contemporary equivalent is the Midwest basement. If you live in a home with a basement, your best choice for staying cool throughout a power failure is to establish a sanctuary in your own contemporary cave. Since heat increases and cool air naturally collects downstairs, your basement can be so great during a heat-related emergency. They hung wet sheets. For thousands of years, the Egyptians would hang damp sheets and linens in entrances and windows. Those moist sheets would help cool their homes through evaporation and turn an arid desert breeze into an early mist device. Down south, many hang these wet sheets in entrances, but they also sleep with them. Before you go to bed, you should try dipping your sheets in water and then wringing them out so they're not leaking wet. Through the night, the wet sheets will continue to evaporate, cooling the air around you. They went swimming. The Great Bath, built over 5,000 years ago in Sindh, Pakistan, is just one of the earliest public pools in the Old World. Throughout history, many people have used these public water tanks for bathing, and more importantly, for being and staying cool. In the 1930s, the building and construction of public pools skyrocketed in America. And between 1933 and 1938, almost 750 municipal pools were built throughout the country. Even if you don't have a swimming pool, sitting in a small plastic children's paddling pool or soaking in a bathtub filled with cool water can help bring down your body temperature. For about $10, you can buy one of these swimming pools and stash it away for a hot summer day. Some other good ideas for staying cool without air conditioning. Have a misting water bottle for everyone in your house. Something as easy as having a couple spray bottles filled with water can help to keep you cool during the summertime. Simply misting yourself on a regular basis, particularly if you can stand in front of a fan or out in a shady breeze, can work wonders for cooling down your body. It can also be a lifesaver at the time of a scenario where you could be getting close to heat exhaustion. Invest in some cooling towels. When I was younger, my AC headed out on a cross-nation trip right as I hit the scorching 110-degree heat of the desert Southwest. To stay cool, I stopped at each rest stop along the highway and wet down my t-shirt and a couple of bandanas, and then I twisted around my head and neck. Doing that helped me make it through 10 miserable hours of fatal heat with no ill results. Today, makers use special fabrics and materials to make long-lasting cooling towels that can provide a lot of relief for the heat. Quick tips. Just get some battery-operated fans. Build your own off-grid AC unit. During the day, keep your shades drawn and your windows closed. Or, if it's windy, hang lightweight linens that block solar rays but still allow a light breeze to enter your home. Make sure to wet them first. At night, open all your windows and let the cool night air in. Wear some loose-fitting, lightweight, light-colored clothes. Stay hydrated at all times. A heat wave is approximately as predictable in the summer season as the presence of watermelon at farmers markets. If you live in a region that doesn't generally experience high temperatures, you may find yourself and your family in danger of heat stroke. As a long-lasting desert rat, Here are some pointers to help you stay cool or as cool as possible when summer heat skyrockets. Make ample use of every kind of fan you own. Ceiling fans are a must. Just be sure the fan blades are turning counterclockwise, which blows the air downward. Turn off your fans when you leave home. Distributing air is there to help keep your body cool. When nobody is in the room, electricity is being lost. If your house or apartment or condo does not have AC, keep spray bottles filled with water handy. It's amazing how a spritz of water on your face will help you feel cooler. This is an old technique I learned when I survived on kibbutz. Prior to bedtime, spritz your bed sheets with plenty of water. Intend an electrical fan toward your side of the bed. Dive in and go to sleep rapidly. If you do not yet own several battery-powered fans, hurry over to Amazon and pick up at least one or two. I purchased one small fan for each member of my family. My thinking is that we should each be able to have your own fan and not have to share its cooling breeze with anybody. You can use other individuals' cooling. Several summers ago, when our home was being refurbished, the children and I spent lots of hours at the library. At times, we'd go to the mall, but that was too dangerous to our budget plan. If you have a family and friends who enjoy your company, pay them a go-to. Take in a tub filled with cool water. That will cool off your core better than a shower will. Wear your bathing suit around the house. If you'll be outside, wet down a bandana. Put several ice cubes down the center, diagonally, roll it up, and tie it around your neck. If the early mornings are cool, open all your windows. Let that cool air flow through your home, and then close them up as quickly as the heat embeds in. At this time, close your drapes, shades, or shutters. I love a bright sunlit home, but in the summer, this works for me. Check the western direct exposure of your home. If you have windows that face west, look into low-cost blinds. Even aluminum foil taped over your windows temporarily can help keep your home cooler. Look at those who do landscaping. You'll find they always wear wide-brimmed hats, long-sleeved shirts, and long pants. They know what they're doing. It sounds counterintuitive, but that additional fabric will protect your skin from the sun. If you really need to do outside chores, do them in the early morning when the sun rises. Young kids and the elderly are more susceptible to heat stroke. Pay cautious attention to their needs. Look at elderly good friends and loved ones. In the Great Chicago Heat Wave of 1995, numerous people died in less than a week. A lot of them were senior. If you must, splash your naked body with water and stand in front of a fan. Finally, think like a survival mom. What can you do to get ready for the next heat wave? Chapter 6. Winter Season Survival. Without the benefit of main heating, a warm vehicle, or access to a heated public structure, wilderness survival in winter months can be difficult. The following list consists of vital knowledge for staying warm in winter when you are out in the wilderness, plus some winter risks to look out for. The dangers of getting cold in the wilderness. Whether you're backpacking, camping, living off the grid, or in a survival situation, you really need to consider your options for staying warm in all sorts of weather. That's tougher than it sounds when you are far from civilization. Everything you need must fit in your pack or have space for in your shelter. That means you probably won't have room for an elegant generator, additional fuel, or a hot tub. Okay, so I'm kidding about the jacuzzi, but staying warm in winter season actually is no joke. The risks of getting cold in the winter wilderness go farther than a mild case of the chills or a runny nose. Sluggishness. As your body cools, you'll start to feel drowsy and sapped of energy. That will keep you from moving quickly enough to stay alive in an emergency. Sluggishness will also stop you from having the necessary energy to complete physically demanding survival jobs, like building a shelter or digging for food. Brain fog. Brain fog occurs when your blood cools and slows, bringing less oxygen to your brain. This will slow your thinking and may even cause confusion, which contributes to poor decision making. Shivers. Unmanageable shaking is just one of the first signs that the cold is getting to you. It makes it tough to light fires, tie appropriate knots, and look after other necessary survival needs. Shivers also have a mental effect, even on the toughest survivors. Frostnip and frostbite. When the water particles in your body start to freeze, you're taking a look at frostbite, which can irreversibly damage skin, muscles, and your nervous system. Frostnip is the stage before frostbite, an early warning, so try to catch it before it intensifies. Better yet, take procedures to keep from frostnip in the first place. Hypothermia. This is the huge bad boogeyman of winter season wilderness survival. When your body's core temperature level dips below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, hypothermia sets in. Around 600 people die every year from hypothermia, tons of which could have endured if they'd had the right knowledge. Frostnip and frostbite. When tissues cool and capillary restricts, you get frostnip. It is not irreversible, but if left untreated, you will rapidly slip into frostbite territory. There is no returning from that, and once your tissues are damaged by frostbite, those cells are dead. Here are some signs of frostnip and frostbite. A cold or numb feeling in the affected area. Pale or red skin. Pins and needles feeling in the area. Itchy, tingly, or clammy skin. Loss of sensation to cold. Loss of elasticity and pliability in your skin. Increasing pain. Frostnip signs include a cold or numb feeling in the affected area, pale or red skin, and sometimes the pins and needles tingling of restricted blood flow. In one word, frostnip is annoying. Your skin will feel itchy, tingly, and possibly clammy. It's important to note that frostnip leaves your skin's pliability and softness intact, so these aren't good signs of potential damage. If you can't get the affected skin to warm up again, you'll really need to watch out for frostbite. Signs of frostbite include skin turning whiter or paler, loss of sensation of cold, skin losing flexibility and pliability, and increasing pain. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot you can do for full-blown frostbite other than warm yourself up in order to prevent more damage. So avoidance is your best course of action. Hypothermia. Hypothermia is much more uneasy than frostbite, since this condition can rapidly lead to death. If you happen to be in the wilderness alone, getting hypothermia is generally a death sentence, unless you move quickly to treat it. Here are some signs of hypothermia you need to be knowledgeable about. Shivering, slurred speech, weak pulse, shallow breathing or trouble breathing, poor coordination, amnesia and confusion, loss of awareness. Because of the confusion, amnesia, and potential for loss of awareness associated with hypothermia, it is extremely challenging to self-diagnose this condition. If you think you could have hypothermia, you must take immediate steps to heat up and get yourself protected from the elements. By now, you know that many problems of cold weather wilderness survival can be dangerous. Obviously, concentrating on avoidance and mitigation of damages is your best option for survival. What do you do if you get stuck in the wilderness longer than you expected or you were caught absolutely off guard? For those times you find yourself in a less than ideal situation, all is not lost. Your knowledge might be all of the prepping you really need. Right below are some of the tried and true tips for staying warm in severe winter weather. Basic guidelines of winter survival. Cover your mouth. This has absolutely nothing to do with manners and every little thing to do with stopping freezing air from entering your lungs. If you struggle with asthma, have a cold, or are vulnerable to breathing issues, this idea is particularly essential. Stay dry. Wet outfits in winter season are an invite for hypothermia and frostbite. I know it's tough to stay completely dry in the rain and snow, but that is why you should have those 2 additional sets of outfits in your bag. Dry your adventuring clothes overnight and wear your warm, dry stuff while you sleep. Keep from overexerting yourself. Naturally, building your shelter and finding food is essential, but not at the cost of overexertion. If you overexert yourself, you'll be drenched in sweat. Generally, the sweating will trigger you to become hypodermic much more rapidly. Do not sit still for too long. There is a fine line between overexertion and being too still. Inactivity will slow your heart and cool your limbs, so try to keep moving a sensible amount. Passive exercise works well in tight quarters. Dress in loose layers. Layers trap air between them, which makes you warmer than just wearing one thick layer. Moreover, it saves room in your bug-out bag for more crucial products like food and water. Wear 3 to 5 layers, ensuring the leading layer is wind and water resistant. Stay near your shelter. You'll really need to find food and water, but don't stray too far from your shelter. An unforeseen change in the weather could leave you stranded too far from base camp and end in your demise. You should never ever leave an appropriate shelter in search of help in a winter season wilderness you aren't familiar with. Never ever sleep on the ground. The ground is cold and also usually wet in the early mornings specifically. If you can, build some kind of platform to get yourself off of the ground. Even a layer of plastic bags or a basic tarp would be better than sleeping directly on the ground, so get creative if you must. Shelter is your new god. This means that you better be prepared to work. Whether you produce an action plan and collect your shelter supplies before the big event, or you wind up winging it, shelter must be your leading concern for winter season survival. Shelter provides defense from the elements: rain, snow, dropping temperatures, and biting winds, and a place to store your equipment and supplies. Your job is to hunch down and stay alive, and you can't do that without shelter. The cold weather are unforgiving, so build a shelter that can withstand Mother Nature's worst. 5 types of winter season wilderness shelters. In a wilderness setting, you can make a fast, strong shelter using what nature itself has provided. Try to find big trees, rocks, fallen branches, saplings, and natural land formations that you can use to your advantage. Tree and bush shelters. Using trees and shrubs as shelter shouldn't be your whole winter survival plan. It's just not sustainable, comfortable, or appropriate for long-term survival. Besides, You can't begin a fire under them, and you'll really need to have a fire at some point if you want to make it. Nevertheless, in a pinch, when there isn't time to construct a correct shelter, this just may keep you alive. Spruce trees are appropriate for human shelter since they offer a sturdy, nearly impenetrable canopy. They usually have a thick bed of needles underneath them to lay the groundwork for a comfy bed. In addition, the trunks of many types of mature trees can be big enough to provide a natural windbreak. If there are no spruce trees in your area, you can use any tree that has a very good canopy and a thick trunk. Avoid trees that are leaning heavily to one side or that have roots coming up out of the ground. Heavy snow could topple this behemoth at any moment. If the branches are too low for you to run under, cut or break a few off to make an appropriate area for you to climb inside. In a pinch, you can slide under heavy brush or deep inside evergreen plants. Look out for animals hiding in these locations, however. Some won't be as ready to forfeit their home when you come intruding. To take full advantage of the heat inside this kind of shelter, try to make it on the tinier side and accumulate remains on all sides of the shelter. The remains can act as insulation and keep your temperature from leaving to get you through the night alive. Hollowed logs. Hollowed logs work a lot like the tree and bush emergency situation shelters. You may dig into them a little bit to make enough room, but they are already raised off of the ground and supply their own cover, so it is a compromise. Find a down tree with a trunk that's beginning to rot from the inside out. This indicates that the center of the log will be breakable or perhaps already partially hollow, while the outside will be intact. Use a tool such as a strong shovel, trowel, or hand axe to carve away at the center of the log and hollow out an area huge enough for you to climb inside. Expect big bugs while doing this. Once the interior of the tree is reasonably clean, climb up inside. For added heat, consider stacking rubble around the open end of the log to keep cold air out and body heat in. Make certain that you still have a way for fresh air to get in at night. Hollowed logs can be great in an emergency situation if you come across just the right tree or log that is in the correct stage of decay. Don't squander your time attempting to hollow out a downed tree that isn't already rather rotten. It will take far too much work. Like the other tree and shrub-based shelters, you don't want to count on a hollow log for too long. It's great in a pinch and will get you out of the elements, but it's not practical for a long-term stay. Tip: a reward for finding a huge log like this is that any pieces you dig and scoop out will make awesome kindling for beginning a fire. Moreover, grubs love to live in decomposing trees and make a crispy reward when cooked over a fire. Tarp shelters. Tarp shelters are simple to construct, assuming you have some fundamental survival gear in your bug-out bag. A tarp and a little bit of army-grade paracord are all you really need to stay warm and dry. A roll of duct tape would not hurt either for closing up the ends of the shelter, and also many other survival purposes. For the following draping methods, keep one end open and higher than the other. This gives you room to crawl in and lets rain and snow slide off the other side. The duct tape will keep the flaps in the back closed. If you do not have duct tape, use heavy rocks put around the tarp tent to keep it from flapping in the wind. Curtain your tarpaulin over a very big log, low branch, or fallen tree. This is good enough for a fast, short-term shelter for 1 to 2 days. Heavy rocks on the outside edges will keep the wind out. Then drape the tarp over a branch or tall plant about chest height or above for a larger shelter. That is suitable for 1 to 7 days, generally. It's a pretty good choice for a searching or trapping camp if you have already spotted animal activity close by. String rope or paracord up tight in the trees, then curtain the tarpaulin over the paracord for a taller shelter. The cable and tarp shelter offers more room for a survival fire and a bit more leg room without sacrificing heat retention. This is a great alternative for a longer stay. It offers an appropriate base for adding layers to the outside walls for more insulation. As long as your cord holds and your frame is durable, you can add more wind and rain security on the top as well. Branches, plastic sheeting, animal skins, and newspapers work well with this kind of shelter. Snow trench. A snow trench can save your life if conditions are so bad that you cannot get under the trees, or construct a tarp tent before dark. A lot of people are hesitant to think of snow as an option for constructing a warm shelter. After all, snow is cold, right? Well, it is, but it is also a great construction material and highly insulating as well. Here's how you build a snow trench shelter. Dig a narrow trench in the snow to mid-thigh and slightly larger than your shoulders. Put branches, boards, poles, or sticks across the trench to create a stable roofing system frame. Just use blankets, tarps, camp towels, plywood, or more branches to completely cover the top of the trench. The last roofing layer should be snow, which is an excellent insulator. Pad the inside of your trench with leaves, evergreen boughs, blankets, papers, or plastic bags. Then slide in. Your body will heat the trench enough to keep you alive until daybreak. Lean-to. A lean-to is a really basic survival shelter that includes a horizontal primary support beam across the top and sticks or branches leaning up against this support on one or both sides. Here's how to build a standard lean-to. Find a tough, straight branch and place it between two trees. You can support it by placing each end of this branch in a V of two branches in the support trees on either end, or by lashing it to the trees using cordage. For a smaller shelter, try making a lean-to with one end in a tree and the other down on the ground. This will make a smaller sized shelter, which will help to keep in body heat. You should use littler branches and lean them up along each side of the shelter. This is precisely why this shelter is called a lean-to. That will finish the structure. For insulation and to make the shelter more resistant to rain, pile up rubble against this framework in cascading layers from the ground up. The thicker the rubble stack is on each side, the more insulation you'll have and the warmer it will be at night. Lean-tos are simple to make using a variety of supplies. Ski poles, branches, wood slabs, anything you can find that will make a sturdy frame and a tough roof is enough. They're exceptional for long-term survival in the winter season. It's as easy as leaning poles, branches, or other stiff materials against another sturdy object to make a space below that is huge enough for you to lay or sit in. Use of fire. Shelter, food, water, and fire. These are the four things that will keep you alive. Fire can be exceptionally hard to produce and maintain in winter conditions, so it is always best to prepare beforehand. Keep a fire starting set in your BOB, your car, and at your work environment so you're never caught off guard. If you find yourself in the dead of winter without any lighter, you can try some of these smart techniques to get a fire going without a lighter. You'll want to start collecting firewood right away. Pick up whatever you see and hang it from your pack to dry as you walk. If it's drizzling or snowing, stick it inside your pack. It will not dry extremely fast in there, but at least it's not getting wetter either. Things that are on top of the snow will be much easier to light than the items under the snow that have been soaking up water for days. You'll need a significant amount of kindling for winter season fires. Smaller is better, so shave it down or snap wood into pieces and gather the splinters and smidgens into a pile. It's tempting to produce a roaring fire on these cold winter nights, but that is a great way to get yourself dead. Everything is harder to find in the winter season, so preservation of firewood should be a concern. Keep the fire little and protected. Feed it only enough to keep it burning and your water boiling, and be prepared to hunt in the coals the next early morning for anything that is dry and still burnable. Staying warm overnight. During the day, you can move around and produce body heat to keep you warm, but in the evening, your breathing slows and your body starts to cool down. You're going to need warm layers, a dry shelter, and good insulation to make it through the night. Make sure you use these techniques to add a little bit more warmth to your nights. Tea candles are small but remarkably good heaters on freezing nights. They're easy to keep in your BOB and weigh practically absolutely nothing. In a well-built shelter, you can use one small tea candle to stay warm. Make sure to place the candle in a place that will not catch you or your shelter on fire while you sleep. I like putting them in a tall mason jar and tucking them near the sealed back of the shelter where my head will be while I'm sleeping. Survival blankets trap heat and keep you warm in the coldest weather. They are light enough to load around, but tough enough for some harder applications, like use of a short-term roofing for a snow trench. Newspapers, plastic sheets, plastic bags, leaves, and evergreen boughs can keep you warm if you do not have a blanket. They also make great sleeping mats. Hand warmers are light, cheap, and simple to use. Hot stones from your fire can lengthen the heat production in your shelter without risking catching every little thing on fire. Put them around you at bedtime or in a pile nearby to extend your heating time. Use passive exercise to keep your blood flowing. Tense and relax your muscles for some minutes to raise your body temperature level and help warm up your sleeping area. That works great in sleeping bags, but if you only have leaves, branches, and a snow trench, passive exercise will still help. Ensure your socks are dry before going to bed. It does not take long for wet socks to freeze, even inside a sleeping bag or under some makeshift bedding. Essential winter season survival gear to have. There are many posts online covering survival gear in general, but not as many good ones for winter-specific conditions. So, here's my personal list of winter season survival gear. Just add these products to your bug-out bag, BOB, and you are good to go for even the harshest winter season survival circumstances. A hatchet for reducing little trees or digging out logs. It works great for shaving wood for kindling also. A small shovel. You're going to need this for emergency shelters, like the snow trench, and for digging under the snow when foraging for food. 2 additional layers of clothes. I bring long johns and workout clothes. Be sure to use whatever will fit under your regular outfits and will fit in your BOB. Choose loose-fitting items that dry quickly. Ski mask, balaclava, face shields, or perhaps a basic bandana. Have 2 pairs of crucial clothes so one can dry while you wear the other. Hand warmers. Bonus socks. Bring 2 more pairs than you think you will really need. Fire equipment, including but not limited to matches, lighter, flint and steel, and a small amount of dry kindling. a canteen to keep close to your body under your clothes to ensure you always have water. This has been Survival Guide, Prepping to Stay Cool, Stay Warm, and Find Water by Jordan Gunner, narrated by J.A. Leidig.